Okay guys, in this video we're going to be taking you through everything that can go wrong with these, what they're like to live with on a daily basis, what they cost to own and operate, and most importantly, we're going to let you know if you should or shouldn't buy one. Let's do this. Now guys, the Toyota CHR, it does risk being just really disappointing because it's trying to be an SUV, but it's also still trying to be a hatchback. But then when you look at it, it looks like it's trying to be kind of a sexy coupe. And as we all know, when you try to be everything to everyone, you generally end up just disappointing everyone. Anyway, the CHR, it has been with us since about 2017 and it received a mid-cycle update for the 2020 year model. And depending on the year, it's available with a couple of different engine and transmission options. Interestingly, the hybrid is the exact same engine as found in the Corolla hybrid. And you can have front-wheel drive or on-demand four-wheel drive. The four-wheel drive is ridiculous for all but a few of us, but we'll get to that later. And here in Australia, there have been primarily 4 different trim specs. Now, pricing-wise, these currently kick off here in Australia from around about $20,000 and they top out in the mid $50,000 range. Now, if you don't have that kind of cash just laying around and you're looking at financing one of these, well, head to this car's cheat sheet on ReDriven.com, and thanks to our partners Driver, you can get an estimate on exactly how much this car is going to cost you per week to finance. Better yet, you can choose exactly what finance package best suits you. There are no hidden fees and you can get pre-approval in just minutes. Plus, financing via the link down there, it's going to get you $150 worth of free fuel. Okay, now looks-wise, I know this is a polarizing design. Many don't like it. Personally, I love the way these look. I think it looks almost like a stretched GR Yaris. Like, I love how the wheel arches are kind of enhanced by all this kind of sculpture, and then back through here as well, and there's some cool lines going on, and it's all kind of swoopy, and yeah, I reckon it looks sick. It looks great. But it's funny, you know, Toyota used to get criticised for making really boring looking cars. Then they take some design risks and make this, and still people criticise them. Will you people never be satisfied? But it's one thing to look all attractive when you're looking at it, but what about when you're looking out of it? And to make that as, let's say, safe and efficient as possible, you're going to need the clearest of glass, and that's where WIPERTECH comes in. Guys, order the awesome WIPERTECH wiper blades easily online. They're going to be express shipped to your door for free. They're easy to install, they fit perfectly, and if you do all of this via the link down there, you're going to get 15% off. Okay, do you want loads of design flair and swoops and contours and protrusions? Well, this interior might be the place for you, and you know what? It's a bloody lovely place to be. Now, I should mention that the actual materials used, they're going to vary on the trim spec and if it's a pre or post facelift. This is a pre-facelift car, and still it's really, really nice. It's got this really cool kind of design motif on the doors. Everything's, you know, kind of soft touch plastic. There's some scratchy plastics here and there, but everything you touch and use just feels nice. I'm not going to say it feels premium, but yeah, it's nice. As far as actual seating position goes, if you're buying an SUV because you want it to feel like an SUV, this doesn't. This feels very much like a car. You are kind of hunkered down in it. The shoulder line's a little bit higher, so it doesn't feel anything like an SUV. It is a little bit larger for the size of car, I suppose, but yeah, more car-like. Almost, if this was a sports car interior, yeah, I could believe that. Also, just on the whole swoopy design thing, it isn't form over function. Everything ergonomics-wise is still really easy to get to. But there is an annoyance when it comes to the interior design. Toyota have obviously spent some money with this kind of premium feeling leather section up here, but then they've left this bit plastic. I know, you know, cars are built to a budget, but I feel like if this is an area that you touch all the time, it would make more sense to put more kind of premium feel here, because it would just lift the entire ambience of the interior. Instead, you've got plastic. Now, wear and tear on this particular car, it's interesting. Let's do the bad stuff first. The leather, though, the texture already is kind of peeling off there, and this feels very, very, very smooth. It's lost all of its texture. Even on the gear knob, you can see that it's kind of scratching up, and the leather around the back is getting a bit worn. Even the leather on the seats, this could probably be restored, but it is starting to feel a little bit on the firm side. And this perforated leather, look, I know it looks fantastic when new, but after a few years of life, it starts getting a little bit grotty and dirty. The seats are actually really, really comfortable. Seating position's great. There's loads of adjustability there. But yeah, wear and tear, a few scratches and stuff. This car does get used extensively. It gets used all the time. So I'm going to forgive it for some wear and tear. But then the good news for wear and tear, all the buttons, everything you touch and use feels really good. Well done, Toyota. I normally find, or we normally find, that gloss black plastic just scratches the minute you look at it. But this, maybe because it's got like a metallic finish, but these are like high traffic areas, but it hasn't scratched at all. Even up here, it still looks really, really, really good. Like even the door cards, like they feel really good for the amount of use and a bit of abuse that this cops. So overall, wear and tear, good and badish. Okay, then practicality up front, you've got a pretty good sized bin here, cup holder here and cup holder here. Bit of an issue with these, but they're really designed for large coffees or large drinks. One of my little piccolos, or like a double macchiato, it just gets lost down there, really, really annoying. There's a spot perfectly sized for your phone right there. Good sized door bins. There's a spot for your collection of dust and bits of hair and flesh there. Pretty good sized glove box, and I think that's it for practicality up front. Nothing there, nothing there, nothing under the seats. Yeah, not too bad. Okay, now in the back seat, I'm exactly 17 centimeters taller than famous believer in life after love, Sher. This is in my driving position. And it's interesting. So knee room, not too bad. They're just rubbing against the back of the seat. There's a decent amount of foot room. My feet don't feel too cramped. The seats themselves, so comfortable. But there's a problem, and it's this. Because of the sexy design here, this is all the view out of the rear door that I have. So if you're a child, this is going to be very claustrophobic. Plus, it's also very dark in here, so it feels like you're cocooned in someone's backpack. But the good news in the back seat is that even with the amount of work that this car gets, wear and tear is excellent, partly because this entire rear section is completely protected from the sun. There are no UV rays getting in here. The leather still feels fantastic, like brand new kind of levels of good. Also, the backs of the seats are wearing really well. Door cards are wearing really well. Honestly, guys, this thing gets a workout, but you'd never know back here. And practicality in the back seat, you've got a couple of map pockets here. You've got cup holders on both sides and tiny little cubby holes. That's it. No armrest. That's it for practicality in the back seat. Then practicality in the boot, not too bad. It's not a huge boot, and there's a little bit of a load lip here, but the good news is the seats do fold completely flat. So, yeah, decent amount of space. Now, good news here, people, because these are still relatively, well, it is actually still a current car, the levels of tech and features are very, very good. Even in the early base spec models, you're still going to get Bluetooth connectivity, a touch screen, dual zone climate control, and all of this and more. However, some of these earlier Toyota touchscreen systems are utter shit. We'll get into that more in a second. Now, some of the higher spec models, they're going to feature like leather accents, heated front seats, keyless entry, and all of this and more. And also, if you've got some extra cash burning a hole in your pocket, check out the GR Sport, because it gets lowered suspension and some other sporty highlights and even more. Now, when it comes to like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, look, some of these will have it, some of them won't. Generally speaking, if you're looking at a post-2019 model, it should have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but just, yeah, whichever one you're checking out, just check if it has it or not. Oh, if it doesn't have it, it's easy to fit. You can just get an aftermarket system and that will do the job. Just make sure you use quality aftermarket gear, because some of the cheap like eBay and AliExpress Apple CarPlay and Android Auto units are utter crap. Okay, now as far as safety goes, look, for early models, it's really good news. For later models, it's even better news. But how about we let Brad Pitt talk you through it?
From launch, the CHR came equipped with 7 airbags, anti-lock brakes, electronic stability and traction control, plus safety sense systems like pre-collision and autonomous emergency braking, lane departure alert, and active cruise control. But from 2021, CHR models could detect pedestrians not only in daylight but also at night. They will both warn and brake as needed to avoid collisions with oncoming cars and pedestrians in intersections, and will keep drivers from swerving into the opposite lane when making an emergency steering maneuver.
Now, obviously, guys, there is so much more to the CHR as far as tech and features and safety than just that. And for all the specific details, go to ReDriven.com and check out that awesome and completely free cheat sheet. Now, remember how I mentioned that the all-wheel drive versions of these are pretty much ridiculous for all but a select few people? Well, Nicole, that lent us this one, she is one of those select few people. See, she's a wedding photographer, so she spends plenty of kilometers driving across some tranquil paddock trying to find the most Instagrammable photo opportunity for brides and grooms, so she needs the extra traction of all-wheel drive. But if you're not a Nicole and you're going to be staying on the blacktop most of the time, a front-wheel drive version will be it'll be fine. Look, obviously inherently four-wheel drive is safer, but even then, with the amount of safety systems on board here, front-wheel drive is going to be sweet. But why is that? Well, see, both engines on offer in these, they're not exactly the most enthusiastic engines. They're not exactly going to be struggling for traction. Plus the extra weight and complexity that comes with the four-wheel drive system, it basically makes the equation not great for acceleration and even fuel consumption. Look, don't get me wrong, these engines, they're not embarrassingly slow. Like, this is pulling into an 80km/h zone. And we're nearly at 80, There's 80. Okay, not that fast. This is the 1.2 litre turbo, by the way. They get up and go all right. Like, overtaking at freeway speeds, that might require a bit of bravery, but around town, the power plant is fine, especially if it's the two-wheel drive. Look, other than the engines, ride and handling is super impressive. Like, ride quality especially, fantastic. Like, quite often jacked up cars like this, they can actually be overly firm because the center of gravity is higher, so you've got to make the suspension firmer so it doesn't pitch and roll all over the place. But in this, it's a really compliant ride, and even handling wise, obviously it's not a performance car, but it does feel confident through the corners. But the steering for me is a bit overly light, very lifeless, there's no communication. So judging it, like when maneuvering through traffic or even parking, just judging where the car is can be, I'm not going to say challenging, but maybe a little harder than it needs to be. The other thing that's way harder than it needs to be, that blind spot. My God, again, you know how I was saying before that it requires possibly some bravery to overtake at freeway speeds. It also sometimes requires bravery to change lanes, because it's almost like, I don't know, there's a black hole of vision just there. But then when it comes to like dealing with traffic or parking, because it's a small car, it's easy. Also, the parameters are really easy to judge. The glass house forward is great, just not that way. Then we come to like rattles and squeaks and noises and stuff like that. Now, Nicole has done nearly 110,000 kilometers in this, most of them on the horrifically bad Hunter Valley roads. There are no rattles, there are no squeaks. It sounds basically new. At freeway speed, there's a bit of wind noise from the mirrors, but it's not too bad. But yeah, rattles, squeaks, none. You know what, I just had a thought. With how like fundamentally good this car is to drive, imagine how awesome it would be if Toyota put like the GR power plant from like the Yaris and the Corolla under this and gave it the same kind of steering and transmission. This in like hot SUV form would be epic. But look, overall, what does a normal CHR like to drive? Yeah, it's good. It does the job. It doesn't, I just wish it was a bit more inspiring. I wish it felt a little bit more special, but yeah, it's good. Okay, so what goes wrong with these? Let's start with the exterior. First of all, the paint, especially on white models. Now, this problem, it's nowhere near as bad as that you might see on certain Corollas and Camrys and a handful of other Toyota models where the paint's like peeling off, almost like peeling a mandarin. But with the CHR, it is still critical to go over the exterior and just make sure there's no discrepancies anywhere. Also, and this is kind of specifically on 2020 models, some owners have complained or reported that the rear window can just crack or shatter even if nothing's hit it. Now guys, we have noticed that of everybody that watches our videos, about 3/4 of you haven't subscribed. So I've got to ask a favor. If our videos, if you're enjoying them or they're bringing you real value, can you please consider subscribing? Because the larger that ReDriven grows, the bigger and better and more videos that we can make for you. That would be amazing. Honestly, we appreciate your support more than you know. Now inside, there are a few reports of the air conditioning system either not blowing hot or cold air or just making like really weird noises. If any of those things happen, it's not a good sign. Then a few owners have reported like weird electrical problems, like certain functions not working, some of the gauges playing up, and worst case scenario, the car just not starting. And then there are a handful of owners that have reported that the calibration of some of the safety systems is a bit off, like the lane keeping assist is just way too aggressive. And then some CHR owners, specifically of 2020 models, have reported that the tyre pressure sensor can be faulty and won't tell you if the tyres are basically low on pressure, and that can be dangerous. And then we come to the bloody infotainment systems. Look, this is going to be a matter of opinion. Personally, I've always struggled with some of these Toyota infotainment systems. I find them utterly shit. They're slow to respond, they're clunky, they're not intuitive at all. Some people like them, those people are wrong. If it's got an early one, I'd replace it. Okay, now mechanically, what can go wrong with a CHR? Well, I can't tell you because I'm not a qualified mechanic, but Jim is.
Look, my job this week is actually pretty easy. These are on the same platform as a Corolla and the Lexus UX, which means in terms of reliability, yeah, pretty bloody good. The 18R FTS, that's the 1.2 litre turbo petrol. Look, it's only been around since about 2015, so it's a fairly new-ish engine for Toyota, and there's no reports of big catastrophic problems so far. There are a few isolated reports of oil consumption, pretty isolated though. There are also a few reports of premature water pump failure. Again, not common at all. There were some problems with the high pressure fuel pump, some internal mechanical issues, which were part of a recall. So if you're looking at one, make sure, or if you own one, just make sure all those recalls are up to date. Oh, by the way, all of those recalls are on the cheat sheet. The 2ZR FXE, that's the 1.8 litre petrol. There are a few reports in poorly serviced examples where they are using a bit of oil, so you just want to make sure all the services are up to date. And there are some very isolated cases of overheating and head gasket issues, which can be attributed to a faulty electric water pump. Now, typically when those water pumps fail, they will give you a fault code saying there's an issue. How that manifests into a blown head gasket or overheating is really difficult to understand, possibly because the fault code has just been ignored. A good reminder to listen to your car and get it checked when there's a light on. Now, in saying that, many of these still are under warranty, so there's no reason to ignore a light. Just get it checked by Toyota and they should take care of it. Also in these, there are some reports of fuel injector issues and a few problems with the EGR valve and the EGR valve wiring connector sort of melting through. Something definitely to look at, and again, that was part of a recall, so get that checked too. Now, I just want to add that all of the problems I've just mentioned are extremely rare and in some cases really hardly worth mentioning, so they are still very much a reliable car. The CVT, look, Toyota make a great CVT and they are by far the most reliable of all the CVT manufacturers out there. However, with the CHR, there are a few reports of the ones coming out of Turkey having some transmission defects. It doesn't seem to be a problem with any of the ones that are delivered to Australia, which all come from Japan, so just something to look out for in other continents where these things are available. As for the hybrid systems and the batteries, look, again, typical Toyota reliability here. We are seeing now, I should say in sort of Priuses, Prii, that are 15 years old, they are starting to have a few more common problems with their batteries, but you can get replacement batteries and you can repair the batteries that are in them. So you really should expect anything that's hybrid, especially these CHRs from Toyota, to be completely fine for years. I just want to mention some of those Prius battery complications are not from the battery but from the cooling fan. It's just a cooling fan that draws in air and passes over the battery and cools down the battery. Very simple. Sometimes the fans play up, sometimes the vents and get clogged up with life's filth and dog hair. So yeah, if you're looking at a hybrid CHR or any other Prius or any other hybrid for that matter, just make sure that those vents to the cooling fan are not covered in life's filth.
Now, in saying all of that, if you are looking at one of these, models from 2019 onwards come with a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty. So hopefully any of those issues will be sorted out by Toyota. Although pre-2019, it has a 3-year warranty. So if anything goes wrong, you're on your own. But that's if you should buy one or not. So let's answer that. Okay, so you know the old saying, a jack of all trades but a master of none? Well, that's pretty much the CHR. This thing, it's not going to get your blood racing, it's not going to inspire you in any sort of way, but it pretty much nails all of its KPIs. It's large enough to be practical, but small enough to be easy to manage. It looks the business, it's affordable to both buy and operate, it's safe, it's reliable, it drives really well, there's a good range of variants to choose from, and thanks to all of this, there are plenty available on the used market. So therefore, it's pretty much a no-brainer, isn't it? Yes, you should buy one. Just make sure it has a full and thorough service history. Find the best condition one you can for your budget, and yeah, get one, because bloody good thing. But I've got a question for you. Do you buy one, or do you buy like a Kona, or maybe a Mazda CX-3 or a CX-5, something like that? Maybe something European? Let us know in the comments. See you guys next time. Yes, you should buy one. Just make sure you do. Yes, you should buy one. Just make sure you do. Do your due diligence. Wear and tear back here, even with the... If everybody that watches our ReDriven videos, it's... So wear and tear, interesting.